Hello, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and today I've got something that, well, maybe it's going to seem a little bit boring, but at the same time, it's a question that I keep getting asked, and so I think that it's important that I go ahead and answer it. It's, oh goodness, here we go. So I'm thinking about how can I make this funny, and I think back to the presidential debate whenever it was Clinton was running against I think it was Bob Dole, and you know he's like, you know, MTV had these questions and everything that were so funny because they're kind of edgy. They were what, you know, our younger generation wanted to know and everything, but they would throw in some questions that you wouldn't think would be stuff that, you know, anyone would dare ask them. And so they asked Clinton. They said, boxers or briefs? You know, this is before Clinton's sex scandal, and I think he said boxers. I don't really remember. And then they asked Bob Dole. They said, and Bob Dole, you know, just to remind you, was pretty old. That was the last big political thing that I think that he did. And so, I don't know, he was in his late 60s, I think. Anyway, and so this all kind of fits in because, so they say, Mr. Bob Dole, boxers or briefs? And he says, depends. Now, for those of you in the United States will know that there's a product that is adult diapers that is named Depends. I know that's not what he was thinking, but it was just funny and everything. And so, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I can live up this subject. The subject is capital structure and financing. Oh my God, it's so much fun. Not really. So, but here's the question and how this pertains to me and what I get asked a lot. I get asked a lot of stuff about entrepreneurial questions, you know, a lot of things about how do you set up a business, how do you go into business, how do you find the right products, stuff like that. And this guy here, Zwithorn, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, he says that he is a finance student, and he has two related questions for me. And the first one is, in the past, how did you go about raising capital to start your businesses? And then the second question is, how do you decide your ongoing capital structure for your different businesses? Capital structure being the ratio of debt to equity in your business. Okay. So, I think that these are very good questions, and they're very important questions, because if you don't get this stuff right, you don't have the power that you need to actually get done what you're trying to do. And this especially comes into play when you're successful. If you're not successful, it doesn't matter, you know, how everything's set up, because you know, it really matters for a couple of things. It matters for, you know, your cash flow, for buying product that you're going to resell, or for paying for manufacturing, or for paying for the service, you know, the staff and everything. But then none of that matters if you're not making any money. Because the other half is that how are you set up for taxes? And that's also very important. I can tell you that in the past, that with the kind of sales that we were generating, we really could have been in the 40% tax bracket, you know, paying you know, high 40s in overall tax if we didn't set up well. Instead, we set up differently, so we're paying around 23%, I believe. And you know, for the volume of money and everything, that was a good rate. Now, the tax stuff changes every year, and so you have to have somebody who's really on the ball with that stuff. You need a CPA if you have money rolling in. You can't just do it yourself. and you need an accountant and everything. I can tell you that in the past with some of my companies, we have done millions of dollars in sales annually. And when you get up that high, these days though, I've gone bust again and I'm starting over. So don't look at me as like some millionaire that has, a whole crap load of money to throw at things, because I don't. And that's part of being an entrepreneur, is that there is failure. And I have failed pretty spectacularly at a couple of businesses. In fact, into this video, instead of doing my normal exit, I'll say a few words about one of the biggest, a couple of the biggest losses I've ever had, and I'll link to them. And I lost $250,000 in one day on one, and then another one was I lost about $500,000 over about 2 years. So I'm just making a note here. And so the in the past, how did you go about raising capital to start your businesses? I can tell you that I have never taken a partner in a business until recently. And I always was 100% self-funded. Now, and there's some reasons for that. And the reason is that I would rather have less power with the company in the respects of how much cash we had to do what we were trying to do, as opposed to having partners in the business that wanted to tell me how to do things. And now, that doesn't mean that I can't do that, because I can. But as it was then, I was thinking smaller. And I know that in order to get something really, really big, we were doing millions of dollars in sales a year, but to get even bigger than that, to get up into the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in sales a year, there is no way that someone like me, who is just self-funding it, unless I was already a very wealthy man, could do that all on our own. It's not very many mom and pop companies that really grow to power and really grow to a point of being able to do really, really competing with big business. And and I've always looked at it as stepping stones, is that I'm going to build one thing, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to make it generate income, and then I'm going to take the profits from that, and instead of cashing them out and putting them in my pocket, I'm going to use that to go to the next level, the next project. And I did a bunch of that with my last company. We fostered, I don't know, probably about 20 or 30 projects where we spent about $10,000 each on them to see if they would light up and turn into anything. And some of them did. But I've been, one that's wanted the control. Now that I'm a little bit older, and really, guys, I'm only 41. I am willing to not be in control. So I'm willing to, I want to have my say and everything, and I have experience and I have beliefs of why things should be run certain ways, but I'm willing to not be the main man. I'm willing to, have someone else have majority control in a company. And so the reason why I wanted the higher end of control in the past was because I didn't want to be told no. And I'm confident enough in myself now that even if I had other investors and stuff, that I could stand up for what I believe in and what I think. And I have my, my tools now about getting to vet ideas beforehand, like the no-brainer, which in fact I was just now editing up the last 2 segments that I did with Matthew about his YouTube channel and his goal for trying to really make a living doing that. And I never got those edited up. A whole bunch of things happened, and they got put by the side. But that's one of the tools, which I'll have that video up in a few days, I guess. And the no-brainer is a tool that allows me to evaluate an idea or a product or a service before dumping a huge amount of money into it. Before then, you just got time and research. You might have to put a little bit of money out to figure some questions out, but you can do it so much cheaper. And so I'm much more confident these days in working with other people's money because I know that I can do that. I can tell you that that I have had investors in one of my recent companies, and that that I did it in a different way. I didn't have them in as partners. I didn't want them to have ownership in it, but I needed capital. And so I raised that capital by figuring out all the numbers beforehand, knowing the volume of stuff that we would do, how much profit we would be able to generate, and then calculated, what kind of high return I could pay. And I can tell you that the return of pay for something that is high dollars with high risk, but I mitigated all the risks, but still it's high risk from the investor's viewpoint. I myself very confident in everything, but high risk from the investor's viewpoint. And the paybacks were between 60 and 100% of the money put in. So if and depending on how early of a stage that they put in money as to how much the return was. And so if they put in $10,000, they got a minimum of $16,000 back. And but on the high end got $20,000 back. So and that is in like a 6-month term, that is an incredible return. But those deals are hard to come by, and if you get money like that from friends and you fail, you risk burning your relationship with them. No matter what they say that they want to help you out and everything, if you lose the money, then you have tarnished your relationship. And I know that because I once sold a company to a friend, which I don't think I would ever do again. And him and I, his family and our family, we were good friends and everything. And another buddy and I, we built up this company. It was wholesale memory manufacturing, and we basically had memory modules made for us, manufactured for us, and then we wholesaled them out to our general area in the Pacific Northwest. And we did things like we did delivery and stuff like that of them right to their door. And that was before FedEx and UPS was cheap enough to do that well. It cost a lot of money to do that stuff, and we had stuff shipped in from overseas, and so we'd have to buy enough to cover a $250 shipping charge of a box that's only this big, but has $50,000 worth of memory in it. And we would, we couldn't afford to keep we had to keep the stock rolling, and so that's why we had to send it overnight and not overseas, because it actually would lose money if we sent it via ship. So we had to do it air freight all the time. And but we built this company up. We had it running well, and then my business partner and I decided we were moving on to different things, and we sold the company. And we sold the company to a friend. And there was a mistake that was made. There's a couple mistakes that were made. And one was my mistake, which was to sell to a friend. I should have looked to sell to someone who was not a friend. And because you don't want to destroy those relationships. But then also, when we were preparing to sell the company, we built this book, and it was a couple hundred pages of exactly step by step how to run the company. And so that, from every step, from here's $1, now you got to go spend it on, memory manufacturing, how to do that and all that, how to get it back in, how to then, resell it out and cycle the money back through, pay the employees, what the employees need to be doing, all of that stuff. And what happened is that, and no disrespect to my friend if he's watching this, we don't talk very much anymore, so I'll actually be surprised if he does. But they didn't look at the book. And I remember that we talked about the book several times, and they just didn't get the sense of the importance of it. Maybe they thought of it more as just something they would reference if they were having problems or something like that, instead of how to actually run the company, which was very important, to keep running it exactly the same way so that it was all status quo, so you don't lose customers, so you don't lose suppliers and stuff like that. And so what happened is like a year later, they're like, I can't believe you sold us this, it's bombed and everything. And we're like, did you follow the business plan? And they're like, what plan? And at that moment, kind of realized that, holy cow, what a huge failure here. Because if they had followed the plan, they would have had a much better chance for success. And but they took an attitude that I've had myself with things of, I know what I'm doing, I know what's right, I'm going to move forward with this. And so with that attitude, you can be blind to the other things going on around you. And so that caused the failure of the company. Anyway, so I guess that how you raise the money in the beginning is hopefully you have the money of your own to do it. If you take investors or whatnot, you have to be willing to give up some of the control. And then the second question is, how do you decide on an ongoing capital structure for your different businesses? Capital structure being the ratio of debt to equity in your business. Well, I can tell you that my first company, I experienced this where we got into really, really high debt. And that was my computer store. And we were selling things faster than we could get them in, and I made some big mistakes with that. We basically, I ended up losing a lot of. I ended up losing the business because I couldn't manage money well, and because we got all this debt. And that was my first major company. I'd done a lot of smaller stuff before that, but that was my first major one where I did it as a full-time job, where I quit my cushy government job that I had at the time, and I did this. I learned a lesson that you need to keep a lot more money in the company. And so after that, I always went off of that you prepay for product. You make really smart decisions, and you only get in exactly what you need to do your orders and to fulfill what you're selling to your customers, and use the JIT method, just in time. And so you get stuff in, and you only keep at first you only keep a day's worth of stock, or just enough to keep you through a weekend. and everything. Eventually you'll get up to the point where you'll have enough cash to where you can keep a month's worth of stock on hand, and then it becomes more economically a higher buying power and everything, because you can make purchases that are larger, and so with those larger purchases you can get a better deal on things. I, after experiencing that, decided that for the most part I would not take any loans out on any business except for very short-term stuff that is for like flooring. And flooring being it's a very short-term loan to pay for product that's on the floor that's going to be sold, and or terms, net terms. And so, you know, I wouldn't consider, you know, really going more than, you know, 7 or 10 day terms with the company, and that's just my own feeling on that, on everything. I want to have a company that owes money to no one, and now that's just how I've set up my, you know, stuff recently, but that's not reality when it comes to making something a lot bigger. And so, you know, but if you can, the best method is, if you can, you reuse your own money over and over and over again to grow it, and to not owe money to anyone. Now, when you're taking a chance, and you know, like I do video games now, and so taking a chance on a new game that's coming out and everything, that is the riskiest thing you can do, is to buy a whole bunch of product for a new game, and then have the game not sell, have the game fizzle, and then you've got all this product. Now, some publishers will let you return it, others won't, and it all depends. But the best setup is to set up with the game publisher or whoever, saying, put this material here, let's see what happens for the first week. If in the first week we have great sales, I want to have a whole bunch of product there. If it's not great, I want you to take most of it back. And depending on what the sales are, is how much we will pay for, prepay for, and have there for, you know, for sales. But always buying the product, and so owning the product. And when it's sold, you're not owing to anyone. You know, I myself could probably these days, I could figure out a method. In fact, I could figure out a method even, in fact, I do have this in my, you know, at our store at Marquee Dragon, to where someone, you know, could front a whole bunch of product, and then as it sells, they're automatically credited their portion, and we pay that out on a regular basis. And that is one method of doing it. And I'm fine with that as long as payments are very, very regular. But what happens is that that if someone else is running the money and everything, and it's not you personally, then they don't make the same type of decisions that you would, and know how important it is that those suppliers are paid. They're just like, you know, it's just like the electric bill. You know, they'll just charge us a little bit extra for being late, and we just keep going on and everything. And that's not right. You cannot take that kind of attitude, but some people will, who are working for you. And so you need to set up your methods so that it forces your staff to act in a very certain way. And if anything gets out of scope, that you're alerted to that, and you take care of it immediately. Your relationship with your suppliers is more important than your relationship with your customers. And the reason is, if you piss off your suppliers, you lose your supply. It's really as simple as that. And you have a lot more power when you're not asking for terms. When you say, okay, I'm going to buy this from you. And because terms equals risk for them. Because they could, you could go bust and then they don't get their money. And that happened in my first, you know, I've had that happen actually a couple of times. And this is why I am so adamant about everything, you know, so anal about money these days. And I don't have money to waste. I wish I did, but I don't. Anyway, those I hope that answers your questions. It may not be as a finance student. It may not be a you know, a accountant's terms or whatever on, you know, how I've done this. This is just my layman's terms. I am not a money management man or an accountant or anything like that. I am the creator of the money. I am the one who goes out and does the marketing, that gets the businesses, that comes up with the new ideas. That's what I'm good at. I'm not good at managing it. And that's why, you know, any business I have these days, I have help with that. There's just no doubt about it. And I need to stay good at what I do. Just like, you know, you studying finance, you're probably good at evaluation of things and accounting and numbers and that stuff. And while I'm good with numbers like stats and stuff, you know, I'm not good with it in other areas, and I know that, and I respect my skills and my lack of skills in other areas. So, real quick here, I've got two annotations that I'll put up on the screen right now, and one is for $250,000. The other one is for $500,000. I can tell you that the $250,000 story is more interesting than the $500,000, but just a really brief thing here that you can let me tell you these things, and then what I'll do is I'll cut to my intro screen with a little music, and I'll leave them up for a little bit so that you can decide which one you want to go to. And so the $250,000 loss was, we were selling World of Warcraft accounts, and we were working with another company, and I made some mistakes, and what happened is that all the accounts got banned, and we took overnight like $210,000 worth of reversals or disputes. And so if you're interested in that, click on the $250,000. The $500,000 loss was my limousine service, and you know, the primary moral of that one was that while we started up at a good time and we were well on our way of doing well, that the economy turned, and when the economy turned, it stopped being a market that people paid a lot for luxury. And so anyway, in the other video I talk about my struggles with that, and how that's the biggest single loss I've ever taken. As an entrepreneur, you lose money all the time, and but also as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of success in different areas. So anyway, those are the two items. Thank you for watching, and thank you for the question. This one was submitted to me on YouTube through the YouTube messaging. I do read all the messages there. You know, well, I get backed up. I have 548 unread messages there right now, and so it's really hard for me to keep up. I'm just a single guy doing this, and so, you know, maybe, I don't know, share the channel with your friends and stuff so that we start getting a whole bunch of views, and I can hire somebody to help me. That would greatly improve the communication, to be able to get to me the stuff that's really good. But it's just myself. So, okay, listen to this music on the way out. It's from Monstercat. This is .exe, and I think the song is Cutthroat. I actually really enjoy the song, and so hopefully you will too. Take care, everybody.
You like that, don't you? You like that, don't you? put it on. Makeup. Yeah, it's not really dyed. The eyebrows aren't. Yeah, like these. I was listening to dubstep before a lot of you were wearing diapers, alright? Which means before you were born!